Thank you all for coming. My name is Roger Siminoff. I'm excited to have you all here and to bring this evening's presentation to you. I'm originally from New Jersey, and back in 1959 and 60, I was a member of a little bluegrass band back there called the Orange Mountain Boys. And back in August of 1961, there's a group coming to Carnegie Hall in New York. They're called the Country Gentlemen. Sure enough, we went having no idea what or who the Country Gentlemen were or what they represented. And we're very lucky to have been able to sit in about the 5th or 6th row back, almost the orchestra section, pretty much in the middle, and out came the Country Gentlemen. And with it came 4 rather outstanding guys. Tom Gray on the bass, Charlie Waller playing guitar, John Duffy playing mandolin, and some guy named Eddie Adcock playing the banjo. And at that very moment, that evening, my entire life changed because banjo was my instrument. I'm really excited that you're going to get to meet and hear from Eddie tonight and have an opportunity to hear some of his music. We're going to do some demonstrations later, but primarily so you'll have the opportunity to understand who he is, where he's from, and what goes on in his head, and I hope what goes on in his hands and heart, because the magic that's there is something that we all need to really focus on and learn. Eddie was the first bluegrass banjo player to ever play at Carnegie Hall in New York City. And he's been inducted to the IBMA Hall of Honor. He was the recipient in 2014 of the Steve Martin Prize of Excellence Award. And the neat thing about that is that his peers who elected him to this very wonderful award included J.D. Crowe, Pete Wernick, Tony Trischka, Ann Stringfield, Allison Brown, Leo Rosenberg, Bela Fleck, and Steve Martin. So to be voted upon by this incredible, stellar group of banjoists and musicians, and to be able to win this award is an incredible accomplishment. Me and Martha have received 3 Grammy nominations, and I would love you to help give me a warm welcome to Eddie Adcock and bring him up. This entire evening we're going to be arguing about who has water. Who out there has Eddie's water?
Oh, it's your water. Hey, your water. Mine, I laid on this seat and drink one swallow out of it.
All right, it's your water. Far be it from me. I'm excited to have you here and be here with us and share some of your wonderful experiences with this. You've used a microphone before, I think, right?
Once or twice.
Eddie was born in Virginia in 1938. I'd love to know from you, I know your dad was a musician, I'd love to know from you a little bit about how that experience influenced your life. You played with your dad for a while.
Actually, that information got put out sometime was wrong, I think.
Okay.
My daddy couldn't play. He did have a saying, there's 2 kinds of music, good and bad. And I found that to be one of the best things I know about, to tell anyone, they say they don't like this kind of that, you should always check, make sure it's bad or good. If it's good, you like it. If it's bad, you don't. But anyway, I was the only musician in the family, but I had brothers that brought instruments home from the furniture company he was working at. You'd find more instruments at a furniture company back in the 40s than you would anywhere else. So he'd bring fiddles and banjos and mandolins home, and I would pick them up and start trying to play them.
Which of the first of those was your interest? Guitar or banjo?
Well, the very first thing I played was accordion out of my brother-in-law's closet. He didn't know even what to call it. But I learned to play that at 7 years old. Then about 8 or 9, I started playing guitar. And played guitar up until I started a band, and whatever instrument the band couldn't play, I would play that one. And so in the process, I learned to play guitar, banjo, bass, mandolin, even a little on the fiddle, although I'm a lousy fiddle player.
As the instrument that all of us think of you mostly performing with, who was your shining light, your mentor out there that really kind of sparked your interest in playing bluegrass banjo?
I didn't have one. The reason
I knew you'd answer that, by the way, which is why I had to forget.
well, the reason is because I didn't think I could measure up to any of them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think I'd ever be able to play like those guys played. So I started off playing what I felt I could play. And there wasn't, what we have nowadays are cassettes, CDs, DVDs of banjo players. You can back it up and start over again. Well, we didn't even have a record player. And our radios, the only radio we had was, I was during the war, when the war was just over, when I went to guitar. Anyway, the only thing you could do is you'd take the old battery that you had before the war and you'd put it in the oven after you'd burnt the last wood out of it. You know, it was cooling down for the day. And you'd put it in the oven on Saturday, about 3 o'clock after it cooled down. Just the heat was left in there would charge it up, and you could hear a half an hour, 45 minutes of Grand Ole Opry. So that's what I had to learn to play. So basically, I just taught myself to play. That had nothing to do with anybody else.
Your first band in Virginia was the James River Boys, is that correct?
James River Playboys.
The Playboys. And when you were with the James River Playboys, how did you feel that what were the things you did to your banjo style, since it was new to you and new to bluegrass, to make it fit in with the band? Do you remember making any
Well,
adjustments?
I was the leader of the band, so they damn
You
sure
should do
had
what
to
you
do
want.
what I wanted. I was the
That's
best
not fair.
musician, so they had to, if I said squat, they did. So, yeah. But I would give them the break of it. I needed the instruments that I needed. So Joe Smith was one of the guys, and he played guitar, so I quit playing guitar and played mandolin. And then we had a dobro player come along by the name of Jimmy Stinnett. He played that, and then later on, there was I started playing tenor banjo, and then to 5-string banjo. So basically, that was the James River Playboys.
Were you playing tenor banjo in a bluegrass group, or were you playing tenor for...
I didn't. There was no such word as bluegrass group. There was no such thing as bluegrass music. It was hillbilly, which was a totally string instrument side of bluegrass. So there wasn't any such thing as bluegrass. Bluegrass didn't get started. Now the bluegrass boys there, but they never called it bluegrass music. They didn't start calling it bluegrass music till 1958. So that was a year after the Country Gentleman started in 57. There may have been one or two people that called it bluegrass, but it was an unknown. They'd think you were talking about a package of seed if you said bluegrass.
So what was your very first banjo that you started on when you were playing with the James River Playboys?
What was it, Martha? That old cast iron thing.
Old cast iron Gretsch or something,
Gretsch.
wasn't it?
It was a cast iron tenor banjo, Gretsch. And it weighed like as much as this building. And if you could ever get it on your lap, play it, they always just give you a hand for being able to pick it up.
When you were with the gentleman, you were playing an Epiphone banjo, which you seemed to just handle so incredibly well. Was that an important banjo to you, or was it just one you had at the
Well,
time?
it was the second banjo I played with the Country Gentleman. The first banjo was an old 27 model mattress stone that I had, just like old Nellie, which is Don Engel's banjo.
Right.
I had one of those.
As you were developing your technique, what were you practicing against? Were you running against records? Were you just sitting playing by yourself? Did you have guys come over to keep rhythm with you and give you a vamp? How did that work?
I hated anybody coming over to try to show me anything. because I was off on a trip of my own, learning to play banjo the way I could learn to play it. And I didn't want anybody throwing a wrench into the works. I wanted to pursue what I was pursuing without any respect from other people. It wasn't because I didn't love all other musicians. It takes 5 years to become a bad banjo player. So I respected them all, you know.
Martha and Eddie have many videos that are up on YouTube. You may want to take a look at Gold Watch and Chain. And in the middle there, Eddie actually has his banjo up on a rack, and then so he can break off and play guitar, and then he gets back on to play a banjo lick. And I implore you all, when you get home, to go to YouTube and take a look at this this cut of Eddie playing this lick in the middle. And the only thing I could describe in his left hand was a tarantula walking up and down the neck of his banjo in the most incredible way. Actually in a very inhuman way, which I do want to talk to you about a little bit. But please take a look at that cut, Gold Watch and Chain. You can find it on YouTube. Actually, you called it Gold Fob and Watch or something, but whatever.
The gold whipping post or the gold watch and fob.
If you want to see something that you'll watch, you'll move the cursor back 75,000 times, as I have, in that lick. Watch some phenomenal things that no one could throw a wrench in your banjo playing, I'm sure. And you seem to be as comfortable on guitar as you are on banjo. Are you
No,
using
the guitar player first.
And are you using some of the same licks and some of the same patterns as you go across?
The music's in your head. It don't matter what instrument you're holding.
So when you switch off to guitar, are you playing three-finger style as well as flat-finger style? Or you should do that at times. And you'll mix them at times.
Yeah, just like I do on the banjo. I don't play a roll all the time.
Right.
Earl plays the roll. Don Reno plays the roll all the time.
You just play a lot of notes.
I figured, no, I just don't figure I don't have to play a roll all the time. You know, there's no law saying I got to play a roll.
There's no law. You got to watch Gold Watch and Chain to see how that works.
I got to ask a question here. I'm Dan. I'm the house musician here. I've never seen you play anything with a flat pick that I can recall. I've been watching you play for 40 years.
I tried to learn to play with a flat pick.
But you
I
don't-
tried to do the roll because I heard on the Grand Ole Opry, Bill Monroe, Earl was playing the roll. So I was playing banjo and guitar, you must be. And so I tried to play the roll with the banjo on the banjo flat. I sucked. But, you know, I tried, I gave it all I had. And that's when it, but I never got out of that. I got, James River Playboy was the only people that told me to play the roll with a flat pick. And I barely made it there. So. Leave that to Jesse McReynolds. Even though it's backwards, he does a wonderful job.
Since Dan has come up, I do want to take a short commercial message here and just thank Tom and Last Stage West for hosting this event tonight. And one of the things that probably excites me the most about Eddie and Martha being with us tonight is that 3 weeks ago on a Saturday, some truck driver out where they decided to cut them off in the middle of a road, and the accident was severe enough that when I heard about it, it kind of scared me to death. But I'm thankful to God that these folks are with us and are able to witness. It's interesting that as I asked Martha and Eddie separately, how are you able to possibly do this with the injuries you had to this trip? And both of them separately said to us that this is the only way that they can really recover is to get back to music and get back to their fans and back to the people. So I'm really happy that you're here and you're able to speak out with us. Smokey Graves was really important to you. Can you tell us a little about Smokey, how you got with Smokey's band, and what that relationship was like?
I wrote a letter to Smokey Graves because you didn't have telephones. Back in 53, 54, there were, but most people didn't have one. And they couldn't have called me back with the answer. So wrote him a letter, and he was advertising he needed a 5-string banjo player for Saturday night dances. And he played, 7 days a week if he could, but he was saying just this Saturday night dances. So I wrote him a letter and I said, I'd like to come out and try out for that banjo job. And I went from tenor banjo and mandolin and guitar to 5-string banjo. Well, 5-string is a whole nother horse. You got to learn to ride all over again. And so he wrote a letter back finally and he said, come on over and I'll give you a shot at it. And I went over and I played as best I could. I was using, for my picks, I was using a metal thumb pick and 2 plastic finger picks. And plastic finger picks are a big glob of plastic on your fingers. They don't really work well. I was doing it bass backwards. But anyway, he looked at me and said, you're not a 5-string banjo player. I practiced like hell for 2 weeks. I figured he couldn't possibly know I wasn't. I'm 24 hours a day almost I was practicing. And my mother went out and signed for me. I sold a calf that I was raising on the farm, and she signed for the rest of the banjo. And the first banjo I got was a Harvey 100. And I went over and he said, you're not a banjo player. And he busted my bubble. But he says, I can tell you're a musician, so I'll give you a shot at it. And then one day, after we started doing the Saturday radio show, Don Reno and Red Smiley, we headed back into town at WRVA at the old Virginia barn dance that they had. And they heard me playing. I'd already started playing a little better with better picks, and he heard me playing and he come by. And to see what I was doing, I was playing single string because I could do that better than I could rolls, so I was doing all single string. And Don come by, he couldn't figure out what in the world, how did this redneck country boy do all this stuff that he was doing. So he came by and he gave me a set of picks and give me a bridge too, a Grover bridge. I had a soft wood bridge on my banjo instead of a Grover with an ebony top. He gave me a Grover bridge and went to Richmond, Virginia, and got me a job with Mac Wiseman. And but anyway, the thing about what I was doing at that time, and a lot of people now call what I do something that comes from Don Reno, because I speak highly of Don Reno. But see, Don Reno did licks on the 5-string banjo. When he came to see me and see what I was doing, I wasn't doing licks on the 5-string banjo. I was playing tunes, single string. Well, not a I wasn't doing that. That's a Reno lick. I was playing tunes with my single string, like you do on a mandolin or a guitar, which I'd been a mandolin player and a guitar player prior to that. So, but anyway, he got me a job with Mac Wiseman and got my banjo straightened out. And later on, by the way, just a footnote to that was, I set old Nelly up for Don Reno years later. And I did it for about 25 years. I set his own banjo up for him.
Yeah.
So,
Don was a wonderful guy.
he was
so many years
a
back.
super dude.
Could you tell us more about where the direction or impetus comes from to be able to do what you're doing, in which you're not playing basic rolls for patterns with the right hand, you're not necessarily doing chording, you're just finding the notes with the left hand, and somehow or other the 3 fingers of the right hand and 5 fingers of the left hand are working. What's going through your mind when you're doing this?
My favorite people were Merle Travis and Bud Isaacs. So that's what I play on the banjo, is Merle Travis and Bud Isaacs. Those are the people that really turn me on and make me feel good about it. And you don't need a roller to do that.
But how does it get from your mind and from your heart to your fingers, to the strings, to the instrument? What's the, I know, but what's the thought process that's going on? Are you just thinking about the melody, or you're thinking about the notes that are going along?
Well, you're
with the
thinking about the
progression of
music
notes?
you love, and you're thinking about the musicians you love, and you try to mimic what you heard them do on a tune that you want to do, you know. Bluebell came about because I heard Merle Travis play it on the guitar, so I played it on the banjo. Earl was wonderful at doing what he did, but Merle Travis and Bud Isaacs weren't any less wonderful for what they did, and I chose Travis and Isaacs over what Earl was doing. I didn't care about what Earl was doing.
So as you develop this music, do you sit and practice it so you can do it the same way over and over again? I think you're going to say to me no. Or is it just this stream of consciousness that comes down from you to your hand somehow, and the melody comes out? Can you in some way tie that together for us?
Well, in the early days, there was a stream coming through. Now that I've gotten older, I have to practice like hell. You know, you go over and over and over and over again. You remember when I didn't go over nothing? Well, now I have to go over. You know, so, but still, at least I can go over it and learn. I've written 4 new tunes in the last year. You know,
Awesome.
I've learned probably 25 or 30, 40 things that I didn't know the year before. You know, my music changes through the years. You know, it's like I can play what I played 25 years ago or 50 years ago, but I choose not to because I've still got this stream coming in. And where I have to practice to get it, to get the new stuff. When it hits me and I almost get it. You know, but to work it where I get it really good, I did it just over and over a bunch of times before.
There's something you said about Earl Scruggs and his style. When you were working with Bill Monroe, didn't he want you to play that bluegrass style?
No, he didn't want me to play it, nor Don Reno.
Really? What did he just want you to play what you play?
He'd play what I play. See, Bill was always this kind of guy. If you didn't have a command of what you wanted to do, then he'd make you play like Earl. But if you had a command and you tell him to go get screwed, otherwise, then you played what you played. So he's happy with it. Don and I and Bill Keith are the only ones that ever got away with that.
Yeah, but it seems like Bill didn't necessarily love when you got more applause at a banjo lick than he did when he played a mandolin lick.
You know,
That
the
didn't
old
help.
man was...
You were Bill or Earl.
You know, the old man was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
He always got his due. He was a super dude.
He was a super dude.
You know, he
Yes,
played
sir.
extremely
Yes, sir.
well.
Yes, sir, he was.
And he died playing. Yeah, that's right. He died playing extremely well.
No, he did for sure. One of the things that has always impressed me is that the voice of your banjo was always like a singing voice in the band. It wasn't an instrument. And somehow, behind backup, and when doing the break, and when doing an introduction, it was as if there was a person's voice coming out of your banjo, not a bunch of notes. Can you tell me how you connected what you were doing to the rest of the band? We talked before about you connecting your mind to your fingers, but how about connecting to your surround?
I was tune-oriented and not lick-oriented.
Okay, perfect. That's perfect, okay. Tell us a little bit about playing with Don, with Bill Harrell, wonderful guitar
Bill
player.
Harrell, Roy Self, Carl Nelson, and I were partners. When I left Mac Wiseman and Bill Monroe, I never worked for anybody else again. I always went with them as a partnership or not at all. So with Bill, me and Roy Self and Carl Nelson, like I said, we're trying to do a rock and roll type of bluegrass. And we also were doing acrobatic things, you know, like we had one point we put bars on the stage and we'd swing on the bars. And Carl Nelson would jump over the piano. He was playing keyboard and fiddle. He'd jump over the piano with his fiddle and land playing it. I did backflips off the stage. The music was really still solid.
Somewhere in the middle there.
You know, the thing about music, like the Country Gentleman, for instance, and you know this to be a fact, we would do anything to sell it. But anything would be, anything we could do but sacrifice the music. We would never sacrifice the music. And that's, you know, we do these things with Bill Harold that was crazy, but we never did ever forget the music.
Always great. And the Stoneman family, where did they come into the picture?
Stoneman family, Ronnie got and couldn't play, and so she quit for a while. And Scott wanted me to play in the band anyway. He wanted to let her go, and so Scott called me and asked me if I'd come with the band. And at the time, it caught me just right. And I wasn't doing anything, so I went to work with the band. I love Scott Stoneman's fiddle playing. He's a great fiddle player. And the rest of the band was good too, Jimmy and all this stuff. But it's about 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 weeks later, I don't know, time slips me now. Ronnie come in to see the band one night. And I felt sorry for her, and I went over to her and I said, "Would you like to have your job back?" She said yes. I said, "I quit." So she got back to work with the band.
And calendar-wise, that moves us up to what I think was probably one of the most pinnacle bands, at least in my experience. The group that I mentioned earlier, the Country Gentlemen, which was comprised of, still in my mind, 4 of the greatest musicians ever put together. Tom Gray, who is still around and is a phenomenal bass player.
Works with Martha now.
Yes, and works with
Over
Martha
half
Bett.
a year.
And Charlie Waller, who passed away a few years ago, who was a great guitar player, an incredible, strong voice. John Duffy was tenor and played mandolin, and this guy playing banjo. And together they were just an amazing, amazing sound that captured everyone's attention. How did you get with that band, and what was that experience like playing with those incredible people?
Well, when I started with them, they played real good. Well, let me start with Charlie. When I heard Charlie playing with Buzz Busby on WARL in D.C., I'd never heard a guitar player like that in my life before. I don't mean how much he knew on the guitar, I mean how much he delivered on the guitar. He delivered. I mean, every run was so solid and so clean and so clear. You know, I mean, I don't even like run guitar players that much. But I like Charlie because somehow he maintained the rhythm and the runs, and that was okay. But that's what I thought of Charlie. When I heard John Duffy, I wasn't really that impressed. The one thing that caught me about John Duffy was he was one of the best, longest, could go 5-hour nights at the Shamrock without ever being sick or ever losing his voice. And people don't know it, you know, people talk about the Osbournes. Bobby Osborne's highest note was a C note. John's was an F. That's more than twice as high as Bobby. And the difference was John sang it in his natural voice every time. So that's what charmed me about John and Charlie. But I didn't want to go to work with them because I just left Bill Monroe, where I made $90 a week in 1955 with Mac Wiseman. And I wrote Mama a letter saying, "Mama, I finally made it." I was 16 years old. "Mama, I finally made it." However it was. And I sent her $45 a week and kept $45, and I couldn't spend the $45 and 55, 56, whenever it was. I couldn't even spend $45 a week, you know. And that's what I made. And then went with Bill Monroe, and I made $15 to $17 to $18 a week. But we worked Harlem, Kentucky. And I think the biggest night we ever had was in Harlem. It was $17 we took in to do. It was now, admittedly, admission at that time was 25 and 30 cents, you know, to get in. I mean, when I was a kid, I'd take a quarter to the movie and get a box of popcorn and a drink and get in the movie too. And be able to go in that night too, after Saturday matinee, and stay for the night shows too. So things are a little bit different back then.
How often did you and the gentleman, when you were with the gentleman, how often did you guys practice? Because I know
We never practiced.
Now, where did the focus come on for the unbelievable timing that you guys had as a band? Which I know was one of Duffy's key
being
points.
together, when people stay together a long time, which they won't do anymore because they usually don't like each other. But when people like each other and stay together a long time, you don't have to practice. And we could change an arrangement in the middle of a tune playing on WWVA in Wheeling, West Virginia, without us ever saying a word to each other. One person was going to change it, and all of a sudden, the dogs would hit the rest of us, and we would all go with that. Because we knew that one person was going to do it this way, John and I would go with that. That's the way it was. Now, I know that may sound crazy to y'all, but believe me, there's something about thoughts transferring to each of us, you know. And those thoughts would transfer. And we could change any arrangement at any time, and you've heard it happen at Shamrock and other places. My cousin here, my nephew, I mean, you could hear the arrangement change on any given night, and we'd all hit it perfect.
Dan, you had a question that you were going to interject.
I just wanted to mention that as Eddie is talking about the Country Gentlemen and joining them and all that, the way that band was formed was because, Eddie, you were in the Bayou Boys with Buzz, right? And there was a car accident, ironically enough. Two of the musicians from the band couldn't make the gig, so Bill Emerson called John Duffy and Charlie Waller.
Called Charlie to replace me, called John Duffy to replace Buzz, and called a guy that couldn't play bass called Larry Leahy to play the bass. But the guy who created the Country Gentlemen was none other than Bill Emerson.
Yes, and he played banjo with them for a few years until he went with Jimmy Martin, but there was this real magic in the blend that John Duffy and Charlie Waller, with these two very powerful voices, and then Eddie came in and his baritone harmony was just as strong. And it's one of the, when you want to learn about bluegrass music harmony, get the Country Gentleman, because you can hear all three parts on every song so beautifully.
Well, you know what people said when I heard people say when there was the baritone singer in the band, said if you can hear it, it's too loud.
Really?
And I said, well, screw you. I'm going to be heard even if it's John Duffy singing. I'm going to be heard. So.
And you were.
And I was, yeah.
So as the newgrass movement happened without you, where did you get into that?
Well, the first newgrass ever played was played by a group called Second Generation.
Huh, I wonder where that band came from.
It was Eddie and Martha and Wendy and Gene Johnson, or Jimmy Goodrow first. Jimmy Goodrow.
Rice first, and then you cracked out.
Well, Tony Rice was in the band, and he practiced and worked with us a couple of weeks there, and then come time to go do the show. The first show was in Kentucky, I think, somewhere like that. And he quit and went to work with J.D. Crowe before we ever had a chance to use him. I never let him forget that. I still haven't let him forget that. But anyway, we ended up doing a better trio without him. So it was a better thing. It worked out better, and that's the end of that story. But it was the first Newgrass band. And I remember Sam Bush coming around. We'd go down a little country road, a little country path at the festivals, and we'd sit down and we'd smoke pot. And Sam would say, he'd hear me and Johnny Castle and Martha talking about Newgrass. That's what we called our music at the time. And he would, he picked that up on that, and later on started a band called the Newgrass Revival, which I thought was a pretty cool name. And in later years now, there's the Bluegrass Unlimited magazine out where they said, "You created Newgrass, didn't you, Sam?" He said, "Don't blame that on me, blame that on Eddie Adcock. He's the one who started Newgrass music." And I've reminded him of that magazine many times. And because he's kind of claiming it now.
And Martha Heron, who is Martha Adcock, that's where you met? Martha was during the second generation time.
What Josh Graves said about me and Martha, the best bluegrass band for two people I ever heard in my life.
And they are just wonderful. They're absolutely just wonderful. I just have a couple of questions for you about banjo setup and things. Do you do your own banjo setup?
Yeah, I do mine. I do Don Wayne Reno's. I do 10 or 15, 20 banjos. I did Don Reno's seniors for quite a few years. I do banjo setups, but I charge like hell for them. But I tell you what I do.
There you go. That's my next question.
I tell you what I do, so you can do it the next time.
So can you give us some tips for like 5 cents?
5 cents.
Some 5 cents worth of ideas for setting up the banjo.
All right, okay, I'll tell you. Don't tune your banjo head. I'm done.
That's it. That's 5 cents. For the rest of it, you have to come give a
Every
call.
banjo has a personality. Don't tune your banjo head.
It's really cool.
A waste of time and ridiculous.
Argue with him, Roger.
I know. I'm not going to argue with him. I'll do that tonight.
All
And he can't
banjos
get
are
away.
going to be absolutely exactly the same.
As
But
long
I
as
might
I'm on
tell
it.
you that I'm wrong. But if they aren't going to be all exactly the same, and none of them are, then don't tune the damn banjo head.
There are 2 things about your past that I skipped over because I thought I should, but I'm just dying to ask you about boxing and racing cars. So how about a sentence on each one?
Don't box to try to get extra money.
Okay.
Even though it may look good at the time, the other guy may be able to knock the hell out of you.
Does the same thing stand true for racing cars?
Racing cars, I run into a guy sideways. He come up beside me and we were going along, and I saw he broke an axle, so I put the brake on. But then he turned and twisted right in front of me, and I hit him at 90 miles an hour and drove him through a 12 by 12. You know, the guardrails on the drag strip. So don't do that either.
Just so you can see how the banjo can lay back and do different things behind someone else playing lead, and have 2 banjos work out pretty well. Could you do that for
Let's
us?
play something like Red Wing.
Yeah, cool.
Do it the waltz version. The waltz
There's a
version.
waltz version of Red Wing? That's the right stuff.
I hope you can hear the incredible balance and support of each other in doing backup while someone's playing lead, and the wonderful voice that Eddie gets when he plays up close to the neck and gets that real warm melody out of the strings and has the banjo start to sound like some other instrument. Just really, really phenomenal. Could you, it's a tune that Eddie wrote, could you do Turkey Knob, you two trade Northlake Sonata, just a wonderful piece to the key of D if you want to hum along.
That's because I can't do this And I'd love to hear how you both manage through a waltz rhythm and backing each other up on a waltz, especially in a waltz.
All the time passing by.
Yeah, always the time passing on, which is a Whatever it is, we're playing it.
Love the way you played the, if you can find the Country Gentleman's version of Heartaches, the original one, the second solo that he took on that is just absolutely unbelievable. And it's this real travesty. Yeah, it's okay. I'm just telling you to go find that. And he's going to play it now the way he plays it now, but go seek that one out. It's amazing.
I don't know where that would be.
No, it'll come out.
That's